Ex-Bungie devs are coming forward talking about Bungie's greedy monetization practices when it comes to cosmetics in Destiny 2, purposefully choosing to not put the desirable cosmetics in the game, Trials of Osiris, in the game for free, but instead to lock them behind a paywall. Let's jump into the entirety of this video from Destin here.
For the last several days, Bungie has been bearing the brunt of the backlash for the marathon art theft allegations, and rightfully so. In my opinion, the entire aesthetic of the game is clearly inspired by the artist Anti-Real, to the point I can't see it without seeing Anti-Real's influence.
Thank you. It is very refreshing hearing other content creators speak about this in this light rather than trying to downplay the accusations from Bungie. Oh my gosh, that is just music to my ears right now.
And Bungie is going to need to contend with the fact that their studio has now been given the nickname Art Raiders, making the outlook grim for their extraction shooter.
That one will stick, okay? There's no getting past that one. This game, honestly, a full rebrand is almost necessary. Marathon is gone. Art Raiders is the name of this game at this point.
Beyond that story, I started digging into Bungie a bit more after public statements were made from former employees. I reported on these yesterday as they described a work environment tainted by toxic management.
And we covered a video about this as well. There's a lot of former employees stepping forward now talking about things.
Today, after speaking with a handful of ex-employees, the picture painted wasn't much brighter. One person said, "The solution lies in holding leadership accountable." Another ex-employee said, "I hope they get consolidated into Sony. That's the path forward."
Honestly, that is the path forward. I do think that's the best possible outcome with how bad things are right now. And I would assume, I would be optimistic that Sony might actually be able to put Destiny 2 on a path where we are in a much better place in the future. I think that with new management, new eyes, and a new vision, Sony's management, it could be better than what it is right now. Obviously, it's been a bad spot, so we need some change.
Since 2023, Bungie has reduced their headcount by roughly 320 employees, and that number doesn't include the 155 roles that were integrated into Sony or the departures of senior staff who I'm guessing were given a payday as they exited the company. The internal picture painted was one of a cool kids club where you were either agreeing with leadership's vision or you were put on a list, berated publicly, and told your ideas didn't matter. If they didn't think of it, it wasn't worth doing, one ex-employee told me. Another claimed leaders were toxic and shut down creatives on a core level, which corroborated the unfortunate story we heard yesterday. The kind of ideas that I'm being told leadership pitched aren't surprising but are concerning as a longtime player and fan of Bungie. In one meeting, adding a subscription to Destiny was brought up only to be vehemently shut down by staff.
Now, to be fair, a subscription model in Destiny 2, I mean, as a paying customer that's already paid so much money, I think if we immediately jump to a subscription model, I think we'd all be a little salty, right? At all the money we spent. It could be handled right if they said if you've paid this much money, you get the first year free or maybe even the first 2 years free or something. But a subscription model maybe makes sense for new players because when they come in, everyone comes to my chat, right? And they're like, "Hey, Lucky, what expansion should I buy? Which one's the most important one?" And I'm like, I have no clue which one to pick for you. Depends on what you like, depends on what you're interested in. Of course, get the most recent one, and then after that, I don't even know, man. You just have to pick and choose, Obviously, everyone's got their own budget, but a subscription model could be easier for newer players to come in because you pay that subscription and then you just immediately unlock everything in the game, right? It's a very easy, streamlined way of getting into the game. But for us veteran players, we'd be a little salty because you're telling me I paid all this money for this and now I got to pay a subscription too?
Another former employee claimed there was a concern about Trials of Osiris PvP armor being too attractive with its glow effect. The worry was,
excuse me,
that it was too good and would impact Eververse sales.
Oh, that's messed up. That's too far, okay? I know that this is a former employee and this is, we're not going to get the exact context or if this is 100% true, but that is really messed up if that is true, because what they're doing is keeping the really attractive armor behind a paywall because they know they'll get you to pay for it. Man, that's awful.
The Eververse, for those who don't know, is the store where you convert real money into silver and then purchase in-game cosmetics. Another ex-employee also recounted a meeting where staff was given a huge monetization scolding. Everything happening to Bungie is because of greed. Another.
I mean, obviously, there's a ton of greed. I mean, Azzacross made a great video a while back called Monetization Hell, and he details all of the greed and all of the crazy monetization practices in Destiny 2.
Employee said. Clearly, the state of Destiny 2, and therefore Bungie, was and still is at a critical point in their history. Rumors continue to swirl since this turmoil began in 2023. Claims swirling like the rumor that leaders were given multi-million-dollar penthouses to use as crash pads, something many former employees believed Bungie was footing the bill for. And if
that's insane if that's true. What the hell?
That was the story being told internally, it's easy to see why a lack of competitive pay, cut corners, and needed positions never being filled led to many seeking new employment. Bungie's problems stem from a lack of player empathy, disconnected leadership, and a corporate-first culture, one former employee said. Thankfully, when pressed to talk about the positive impact, some names did come up. I do want to specify that I can thankfully say Jason Jones, for example, was one person I inquired about, and sources told me he wasn't around much, but on sabbatical for personal reasons. In addition,
so he's if you don't know, we're talking about Jason Jones, he's the founder of Bungie. I think there's like 2 guys that founded it, and he's one of them. So he's like as OG as it gets. He's probably easily the most powerful person within Bungie. So apparently ex-Bungie employees had positive things to say about him. Although, to be fair, he is on a sabbatical, so he's not even around right now. But I guess before he went on his sabbatical, that people weren't saying too much negative. Now, Pete Parsons, on the other hand, that's a different story.
Many felt Eric Osborne was a great leader who got a bad ending. Luis Villegas was also described as being well-liked, and Joe Blackburn, who left last year, cared like nobody else.
Dude, no, everyone, don't put any respect or disrespect on Joe Blackburn's name, okay? He did lose his 1v1 to that Overload champion, but aside from that, Joe brought nothing but good things to Bungie. It was very sad when he decided to leave.
But in addition to the good, I was told about the bad, and unprompted and universally, HR was highlighted as a major problem. Each person I spoke with expressed anger at a specific individual who has since left the company. Ex-employees claimed that HR was working in their own interest, and there were accusations that issues of harassment were being covered up so that HR could get a multi-million-dollar exit. To give you some context about just how much that Sony deal was worth to employees, we can glean a bit from the Christopher Barrett lawsuit against Bungie. There, we can see that he was set to make $84 million.
So Sony purchases Bungie, right? And they allow them to have complete creative control and direction of their company at the time of buying them, right? But the people who own stock within the company have to be bought out from their stock. So the directors, the OGs, the ones that have been there for 20 plus years, all own stock within the company. And so naturally, Sony has to pay them with this buyout. So Christopher Barrett, who's been there for like 30 years, was meant to be paid $84 million from this, which is just crazy when you think about that amount of money, right? Especially when we're talking about all the other devs that were being laid off. Like, this was an extremely lucrative deal for the upper management inside Bungie. And Christopher Barrett also, he's had this money stripped from him due to his allegations.
Due to the status of the HR person in question, that number wasn't 84 million, but one employee estimated they were due around $5 million. Former staff described being closely monitored on social media, not just for commenting about layoffs or company issues, but also for things as simple as promoting the work they had done at Bungie. If you did speak out publicly about either...
Now, to be fair, not that they should be micromanaged to that degree, but there has been some crazy things said on social media that did hurt the impressions of Bungie. I'm remembering a particular guy that said that teabagging in Destiny 2 was simulated like SA, you know, sexual assault, right? Like, that's what he said on Twitter. He said that teabagging was basically committing like a crime, a virtual crime, and he said it completely serious, right? And this was many years ago. And I think after that, the upper management was like, you know, we're going to keep an eye on the things that you're tweeting, because when you post some stuff like this, this makes us look bad, all right? We hired you, you dummy, and you're saying that the teabagging is committing SA? Like, what the heck?
Either a personal issue or you promoted your own work, you could expect an email as soon as 15 minutes later to hit your inbox, one person claimed. Employees were warned against promoting themselves publicly, one ex-employee said. And as for the legacy issues, one guessed, the problems have just shifted to Marathon instead. Ironically, the one thing that helped the situation was Marathon, mostly because leaders who were difficult to work with at Bungie were moved to work on Marathon.
Oh no. No, 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 no. No, that's hard to hear. Okay. So you're saying that the people that were hard to work with were pushed over onto that project. That, oh, wow, you know, that actually makes a lot of sense with some of this stuff. Now I think about the team that they developed. I'm looking at all the names and stuff that got pushed over there. That does kind of make sense. It does kind of add up with the people that I've seen be combative on social media and have various different issues. So they got pushed over to Marathon. So naturally, they have issues internally agreeing with anything because they were the difficult people on Destiny 2.
But that also meant other employees, such as those from the Sony side with little or no game development experience, took that place. And all of this has caused structural issues that severely undermine the studio's culture, decision-making, and the final product. Games weren't games anymore, they were products. Players weren't players anymore, they were customers. And that subtle tonal shift was felt. Now, we've all seen the fallout from the Sony Bungie deal and Bungie's 45% revenue miss. A miss like that means developer jobs and cut corners, but even the former employees feel like a lot of us do. They just want to see Bungie do better.
And to be fair, a lot of people will say, you know, of course, a former employee would say bad things about a company when they get laid off, but it should be said that former employees that do get laid off worked with their colleagues, their former colleagues, for years and developed those friendships, and they want to see them succeed. They know that those individuals have families that need to be, you know, fed and things like that, taken care of. So I think that former employees speaking out in such a manner like this, like we've seen in this video and in previous ones, is them being honest. It's not just an angry thing or a backlash thing. It's just they want to be honest about Bungie's current situation so that they can make the necessary changes to improve. It's not just a full-on, let's just bash Bungie because we got laid off type of thing, in my opinion. I do think that there's a lot of, or the majority of them have a lot of sincerity when they come forward with these stories. Because imagine an idea where you get laid off and then you're just so angry, so mad that you just want to destroy the company, but all your friends work there too. So now they lose a job, they get laid off. Like, it's just, I don't agree. I don't think that's what the intent is from the majority of people speaking out now.
One former employee said, "It makes me sad to know there are so many talented people that can make great things, but are still answering to management that can't stop shooting themselves in the foot. They make bad decision after bad decision. It's not even surprising when a news story breaks." Another lamented, "I just want the devs to be okay." I tweeted this publicly a few years back, and I'm saying this is my personal take on the whole situation. The buck stops with leadership, and that leader is CEO Pete Parsons. After hearing this, I stand by my statement made in frustration that said it's clear Bungie can't succeed with him at the helm. And every time we hear a new story, that becomes even more clear. I know a lot of people at Bungie, and I agree that I want them to be okay. But something quite clearly needs to change. Sony knows this. Bungie knows this. I think we all know this too. And at this point, that change is either going to happen or Bungie as we know it is done. Maybe it already is.
Damn.
Originally, this all kicked off because of an art plagiarism scandal, and I wanted to provide an update. The Reed Southern allegation involved the leaked concept for Destiny that used his work. He said, "I was never contacted by anyone at Bungie over it. It's been 13 years, so my memory is a bit fuzzy, but I've been led to believe that it was outside marketing or a contractor or something doing internal pitch work. It was a leak, so it's likely it was never meant to see the light of day, whether it was Bungie's work or a contractor's, but I've never been given an official explanation."
That's a crazy one. I don't even remember the details of that. So they're talking about Destiny concept art potentially being stolen from 13 years ago. Sheesh.
Tofu Bunny was all about the Nerf gun that lifted their concept. I can't go into specifics, but I can say that we did reach an agreement I was happy with. Hasbro took responsibility for the situation. Bungie acted as a contact to put me in touch with them. I have nothing but positive things to say about the Hasbro team and all the community managers that talked to me. They contacted me the day after my initial tweet and worked to resolve the situation quickly.
So that one's, you can't even fault Bungie for that one. Like, that was like Hasbro, like the Nerf people. they messed up. They took the design, like, so we can't roast Bungie too much for that one.
They handled everything smoothly and were very polite, respectful, and apologetic. Tofu didn't think this case was comparable to the Marathon situation. They said, in my case, it was one design being lifted for the product. Well, in the Marathon case, an artist's entire visual identity is being ripped off and widely used to establish a massive part of the game's style. This is much bigger and much worse. Julian Fayola, whose depiction of the witness was used in a cutscene, said, yes, it has been resolved.
Oh, that's good, because initially they said that it had been almost a year later and they still had not been paid or contacted. So I guess after that response of like Bungie hasn't resolved this, they have followed up and resolved with them. That's good.
I guess
Good to
I'm
hear.
satisfied with the outcome and the amount paid, which is significant for just one piece that was used. Relay 314's case has been discussed publicly. Bungie did credit him for his work. Cosmo said, we have reached out to them and got permission to use their work and are now crediting them for this awesome community depiction of Xivu Wrath. Relay responded saying, thanks so much for reaching out to me over the weekend and being an absolute gem of a community manager, Cosmo. And
So in regards to all of their previous art theft scandals that they've been involved with, they were all significantly smaller than this one, right? And Bungie did resolve it in as much as they could. So the real resolve is, how can they resolve this one with Antihero, even if they can, or not Antihero, with Anti-Real? How do they resolve it with them? And if they can, does the community accept that? Does this game still push forward, or is this game cooked?
Anti-Real, the most recent case, I have not yet received comment from, but she told Gene Park at the Washington Post that the response this time has been overwhelmingly understanding, and I'm extremely thankful for the support. All in all, this whole story is really unfortunate, and I hope Bungie does figure out what's going on at their company, but things aren't looking great right now. If you are one of the people who spoke to me anonymously, thank you. And if you have a story to share about this or another situation, my DMs are open. And of course, you can always reach me at thedestinchannel@gmail.com.
So after watching everything, I have to say it's not looking good for Bungie. They really need to do something to shake up this narrative, and I think it begins by replacing several key figures in upper management. Whether they choose to do it themselves or whether Sony's takeover steps in and does it for them, I don't know which one it will be, but we do know that Bungie is about to have a very wild and very turbulent next few years as we see a different shift in leadership. And of course, as we go through all of that, we'll be covering the news here. So make sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on, smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.